to see frustration as a new motivation is what gives you the stamina in the long term, the willpower to become an explorer.
Off-Gassing, a scuba podcast with host Nick Hogel. The art of frustration is something that needs to be embraced when flirting or participating in exploration. Vincent Rouquette-Cathala, co-owner of Under the Jungle in Mexico, is no stranger to exploration. Becoming obsessed with diving from an early age would eventually lead him down a path of searching for the unknown. At first, cave diving was a way to improve skills and pass the time until he could return to his love of wreck diving. With each dive, he would become more attracted to this environment that allowed him to improve, explore, create lifelong friendships, and most importantly, practice the art of frustration. Please enjoy. Vince, cheers.
Salud.
Welcome to the podcast. Thank you for joining and participating in this. How was your day today?
That was a good day. I should ask you actually, how was your day today? I had fun. It's like a cool dive, nice student, so very good Sunday before starting my weekend, starting the week.
I had an amazing day. One would say, you can call it life-changing, religious moment, whatever you want to call it. But the cave that we went to today was absolutely phenomenal. But enough about me. I am super glad that you accepted to come onto the podcast. And my first question I wanted to ask you is, tell me how and why you became a scuba diver. What led to that moment, that first breath underwater? Was it an amazing experience? Was it horrible? Was it a dare? Was it, tell me all about like what led to that first breath, what led to the moment.
Actually, that was like, no, that was good. That was great. That was in a swimming pool and I was 10. Before that, I had been looking for diving since I was like 3 or 4 years old.
Oh, no shit.
So I was absolutely obsessed with like diving and scuba diving and exploration and pirates and Cousteau. So I had like a bunch of books already. I got my first fins from my parents when I was 6. I still have them. They were like tiny jet fins. And I was just absolutely like obsessed with the idea of scuba diving. I don't know why, really, because it came just naturally super early in my life, and nobody in my family was a diver. So I had the opportunity to try when I was 10, and I really started to take my first course. I was 12, and after that, I never stopped pretty much. So.
Where was this? Where?
In my hometown in France.
Okay.
Like a small city, inland, fairly far away from the sea and the ocean, but they had like a dive club from the police for the city, something like that. So I just like, my parents were so tired of me like speaking about diving all the time, so they just like enrolled me in the beginner course. And the first time I went there, like I was 10, because it was supposed by law to be 10 to start diving, and they told me, "Oh, we're sorry. Now you have to, it's 12 now with the new regulations." I was like, fuck, okay. So he came back 2 years after with my parents. He was, "Oh, the kid is ready to go diving." And I went, "Yeah, but with the new regulations now it's 14.
Oh.
And the guy was like, is it the kid? Like, you already came like 2 years ago, right?" I was like, "Yeah, and I want to start." He was, "Okay, well, like, put another like birth date on the paperwork. And we'll start teaching you even though you're 12, and that's all good. And we won't certify you until you're 14. And that's pretty much how I started.
Okay. And so when you were doing your first dives, being pretty far away from the ocean, I'm assuming like lakes, quarries?
No, we were still going. Like, my parents for that were pretty cool, because like the club was organizing like weekends to Spain, to the Mediterranean, things like that. And my parents were absolutely not divers. Always like they drive me back and forth for diving weekends and everything. So I actually never really dived in a quarry or a lake until I was living in New Zealand, interestingly.
Okay.
So yeah.
You took that first class. Some people know, like, as soon as that class ends, they want to take the next class, right? And the next class and the next class. Talk about your progression a little bit, because obviously there was a drive to want to keep learning. Some people will take that first class and they're happy with it, right? They're like, oh, okay, I did the open water. This is all I ever want to do. Other people, they're like, I want more. I want to learn more. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I don't really remember, frankly. I just remember that I wanted to keep learning. And I remember that I already had like an obsession for like shipwrecks and depth. So I was like 12 or probably 14 by then. So I took CMAS 2 stars, which is the equivalent of the advanced course when I was 16. And I pretty quickly found myself surrounded by people who were doing pretty extreme like tech diving already. So I had lots of questions for them. That was mid-90s, so trimix was still not mainstream, but these people were doing it like kind of hidden in the garage on weekends, and they were doing pretty insane dives, and I was lucky enough to have these people as my instructors at the time. So I started to be super interested by that. And yeah, so the progression came naturally. I just met like super awesome people, and I was going out like being 16 with people who were like 25 or 30 diving on weekends, listening to them speaking about their deep explorations and in wrecks or caves, and speaking about mixed gas, and that's how I was like interested into using diving as a tool to go deeper, to go further, but not as an objective in itself.
Yeah.
I mean, floating around for looking at fish for 45 minutes, I still enjoy it sometimes. But for me, like diving is a tool to make it to whatever you want to go and visit and explore, right? So yeah, that's how it went. I was just like pretty lucky to find the right people and to have like really supportive parents from the beginning. Really.
Yeah. No, especially them not being divers, because I could see that going the opposite way. Like if your family members aren't divers, they're like, this is not something that we're going to do. And then the kid kind of doesn't do it because the parents don't want to do it, but that's awesome that they were super supportive.
Well, the funny thing is like for years and years they were like, yeah, whatever, you're too young. And my parents really like mountains, so we were going to spend all summers in mountains. But even in the mountains, I would take my snorkel, my tiny fins, and I would end up like being like frozen to death into like some mountain lake, snorkeling around and looking at some kind of random like like freshwater fish, and making myself like my mental adventures underwater, you know what I mean? So even if I was in a mountain, or if you had a river nearby, I would just like be in the river with my snorkel on. So when I made it to the edge where actually I could actually dive like with tanks and everything, my parents were like, okay, so next summer we're going to go like to wherever, to the ocean or to the Mediterranean. And so now I actually realized that they kind of sacrificed about like 10 or 15 years of their holidays just for me to go diving, because my sister was not really interested by that neither. So we ended up like being at the sea every summer just for me to go diving. So which is
older sister, younger sister?
Younger sister.
Oh, okay. So you progressed, you're getting into the technical side of it. When did your professional development start?
Fairly early. That's a long story, but just to turn it short, I actually studied at the university, but I was already teaching as a volunteer for like the dive club of my university. So I took my very first instructorship course, or instructor course, whatever you want to call it, like when I was like 20 for CMAS. And after getting my degree, lots of different things happened in my life at this point, and we don't have time enough and things to speak about that. We can speak about it after if you want, but anyways, like lots of things happened that were like absolutely unexpected, and few of them were not actually good things happening. And that's when I realized that what I wanted to do with my life was just diving, and not to keep going with what I had studied. Most likely I would be right now like working either like in pharmacy or the oil industry. These jobs of course would make money, but there are lots of things that happened at the same time where I was like, you know what, I want to give it a try. And I want like to take a break for 1 year. I'm going to move somewhere. I want to learn English, because at this point my English was like close to zero. And that's when I left to New Zealand to work in a dive shop there that was proposing like partnerships with Europeans, exchanges and things like that. And that's when I met like Pete Mesley. I became there like a PADI instructor over the course of a year, still like working in a dive shop. And after that, my idea was like to do that for a year and then go back to France and work with my diploma and go back to the oil industry pretty much. So after a year, I was like, yeah, really, maybe I give it just another year, because now I speak another language, and I've seen like many places. I've met so many cool people, and so maybe life is not just about like making money and a successful career like as early as you can, And then so I started to travel around a bit, up to the point where I was looking for a job where I could learn Spanish, and the point was just to learn Spanish really. And I expected a job in Spain because I've been always like super close to my family, so I was expecting like something somewhere in Spain where I could pretty much fly back to my parents like every month. And I got a phone call like one night from Mexico. I didn't know at the time that actually part of the Caribbeans were here in Mexico. I had no idea about the caves, nothing. And the interview went pretty well. And at the end, the lady was like, "Hey, are you still interested to work with us then?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." "Okay, great. But you need to be here on Monday." And I was
From
like,
New Zealand?
"No, I was in France at my parents, but that was like Tuesday night." And these people wanted me to start working in Cancun. It's like on Monday morning, and I didn't have a word of Spanish. I had no idea, so I couldn't sleep the entire night. And my dad woke up in the morning. I was waiting for him. I was, "Oh, I'm leaving to Mexico." He was like, "What?" "Yeah." "How?" "I don't know. It's like, you need to give me money for the flight." And he was, "Okay, sure. If we can get rid of you, it's fine."
How old were you at this point?
Close to 24.
Okay.
That's a little bit over 20 years ago.
Yeah, just real quick before we speak about Mexico, tell me a little bit more about New Zealand, like the diving there, the type of diving you were doing.
Great. Ocean diving, some of the most beautiful like ocean diving I've seen so far. A mix of like cold water and very different landscapes, super protected marine reserves. There's no corruption, so everybody sticks by the law. Most of the people are super relaxed. Everything is super safe. At least it was like more than 20 years ago. Great memory actually. Like at the time they had proposed me to stay for another year, and I refused because I was missing my family, like a 23 years old. And at the time I had a girlfriend, and I wanted to go back to France and Europe to see her, which was actually pointless. But at this time I didn't know. Maybe I should have stayed in New Zealand, but yeah, I mean, that's life. And,
Yeah.
So that was like a little bit less than a year. I don't remember exactly. I think that was 9 months or 10 months I was there. But that was great. And anyways, like that's, again, where I met like Pete Mesley, where I started to teach in English and learn so much. And that was a great experience.
Mexico, you arrived here. You obviously at this point, like you were saying, you were not a cave diver. Did you know about caves, overhead environments, probably through shipwrecks or?
Yeah, no, actually I knew it for a good, bad reason. Because I had already started a bit of tech diving, especially with Pete Mesley in New Zealand. Probably doesn't remember that, but we had discussed like taking an extended range, and being from south of France, I was like really obsessed with wrecks and World War II and real historical shipwrecks and such, right? And actually one of the reasons why I decided to travel to New Zealand, one of my original instructors was a pretty hardcore cave diver, and he died being 29 on a cave dive after an exploration dive, like deeper than 180 meters of depth, open circuit at the time, because if I remember well, that was 2001. And after that, I never wanted to cave dive. I was like, he was part of the group of the people I was speaking about, like, who were like super inspiring about tech diving and cave diving and all these deep things they were doing that sounded like pretty amazing. So this guy died, and I was like fairly close to him. And so after that, I didn't really want to learn cave diving anymore. I thought like these people were absolutely stupid and crazy. But then I come to Mexico, and life is sometimes interesting, so I'm invited to a party in the flat above the place I was living in Cancun, and there are this bunch of divers, and there's a guy like tattooed everywhere that come and start to talk to me. And anyways, like long story short, in the conversation, we just realized that the friend who had died was actually a friend in common. So I went from France to New Zealand, Tonga back to New Zealand, New Zealand to Spain, Spain to France, then to Mexico, to all that to meet up with one of the guys who actually was a friend of one of the persons who motivated me to leave a little bit my university career and to live the life, because, yeah, again, I was like, if you can die at 29, it's like life is not as long as they tell you it is, right? So I come back to Cancun, and I meet this guy, and I'm just like, wow, that's weird. And he's like, oh, I just turned cave instructor, so do you want like to do a cavern tour? It's great. And I need to teach my first cave course. And I was like, yeah, sure, let's go on a cavern tour and see. So he came out of the cavern, and the guy was like, So how did you like it? Did you like it? I was like, no. No, absolutely not. That was the most boring thing ever.
Do you remember the cavern?
Yeah, definitely. That was Jack Moore.
Oh,
Kukulkat. It's actually a beautiful place, but I was like, okay, cool. White rocks, very, very clear water, no fish, no colors, no shipwrecks, no history, boring as hell. I was great. Okay, yeah, the water is very clear. This is pretty, but that's it. And the guy is like, okay, so it's like shit. So I guess you don't want to take a cave course now. I was like, oh yeah, I do. He's like, what? So you're so weird. Why do you want to take a cave course? I was like, no. I mean, I didn't really like the environment, but when I see you in the water, I want to make it to this point of mastery, and then I can bring that back to actually my real passion, that is actually wreck diving.
yeah.
Because if I'm able to dive like that in a wreck, I will be like the king of the world, you know. And the guy was like, okay, fair, like here are the paperworks, here you'll start. So I started actually cave diving just to become a better tech and wreck diver.
At this point, were you still doing back mount doubles?
Oh yeah, I mean, it took me like, I was already a cave instructor that I had not used side mount yet. So we can speak about that after. But yeah. I just like, that was like 2003 or 4, and I turned cave instructor 2009, and I think that's pretty much the time I started to dive side mount, because that's also the time we started to explore with Nat.
Okay,
So
well,
that all came together.
at first you did the cavern. You wanted to do the course just to become a better diver. When did it? Do you remember when it switched to where you're like, I kind of like these wet rocks?
The big like shift in mindset came actually with my very first exploration dive ever. That was a mess because we had no idea what we were doing.
Was this with Nat?
No, that was even before. That was like 2006 or 7. So the fun part though, it's like after my cave course, I literally went cave diving every single day off and every single weekend, because I had done a little bit of tech diving already, and all of a sudden they gave me these beautiful tools that were like, hey, you know what? It's like caves in Mexico, they're shallow. You don't need a boat. You don't need helium. You can go out and meet girls like the night before and still go diving in the afternoon because nobody is waiting for you, or you know.
Yeah.
So as a recreational young instructor who was making not much money, even though I don't make much right now, but it's still infinitely better than what it was at the time. I mean, that was like a dream way to practice.
Yeah.
Because it's like, again, entrances are here. You don't need like crazy gases. Once I had bought my equipment, that was actually super easy. So I just went practice, because I've always been obsessed actually with details and protocols and the perfect practice and trying to have the perfect skill. And maybe that's something that still shows in my courses. Like speaking about, this is one of the sites I really like the most, like tech or cave diving. So anyways, I did like probably like a year or two of same thing. I was going there just like to do longer dives and deeper dives and have more tanks on me and master the technique. But I don't remember my first 40 or 50 cave dives, or at least I don't remember the environment or the places I went to dive into. I was just like...
It was a way to build a skill set.
And then I was invited for a weekend like in Yucatan by a very good friend of mine to go explore cenotes on a piece of land that a friend of his had just bought at the time. And the guy had like about like 20 sinkholes on his piece of land. And so I jumped in one of them with a twin set. And there was this little passage, and I had to lay a line, and I passed a restriction, and beyond that, he opened in a massive void, like going down like...
This was your first exploration?
Yeah, and I went down to like 56 or 60 meters of depth. And we were on air, so we went all the way to the bottom, we tied the line, and on the way up, like we realized there were like massive stalactites and stalagmites and so on. And yeah, so after that, I was like, oh, actually that's interesting, because when I was a kid, I envisioned exploration as a way to find pirate treasures and things like that. And that's something that's always stuck in my mind. It's why I really liked also World War II wrecks and things like that. And all of a sudden, it just came super clear that there were still like parts of the planet that were not known to the humankind. And actually, I was living in a place where there were many of them. So that's really what all of a sudden made like caves becoming really interesting. Noticing that even me at this point with a very little level I had at the time, I could actually start to do these things. I didn't
Yeah.
have to be the big name like I could read in X-ray magazines or Aquacorps and things like that at the time, because I was a big fan of these magazines, reading explorations and everything. So I think that's when I was like, oh, cool. These places are here in Virgin, so I'm definitely staying here. I want to do that. And then I started to like the cave and to learn how to read the hydrogeology, just to understand them better and to be able to find my way through a virgin cave, pretty much. That's what really motivated me to start to look at the environment and not to just like look at myself and how many tanks I had and the skills and the protocols and everything. So
Just a curious question. So the person that took you cavern diving for the first time, are you still friends? Still in
yeah, he's
contact?
still a friend.
Is he still in Mexico?
We saw him 2 days ago in Ponderosa. The bald guy who came with the red T-shirt.
Oh, they was doing the little
The team
dive
of
soft
people.
crew?
Yeah, exactly. The people were diving with the Liberties. One of them actually, like the Mexican one with all the tattoos, he was actually my very, very first cave instructor. And after that,
history
we
there.
did a bit of exploration together. He took like a bunch of pictures for us at the very beginning before we even had the shop with Nat. So yeah, he's somebody like I have his phone number. We are not. I don't see him every week, but we're in touch. Every time we see each other, we talk together, and that's actually funny because really often he's like, yeah, at the end, like the students like I don't know how you say that in English, but pretty often it's like, oh, you're probably better than me now. It's like after all this.
The student surpasses the teacher. That's how it should be, right? Like a month or two ago, I had Patrick Widman on here, and he was saying the same thing. He's like, you're never gonna be like me. He's like, but you should take the skill set that I can give to you and excel me, right? Like he's like, if you do that, then I did my job correctly, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like which I was like, oh, that's
It should be an evolution for everybody.
exactly, and I thought that was really, really
and of course,
cool.
I'm becoming older, and techniques are moving forward. So hopefully, there are already some of my students
Yeah.
who do like crazier things than I will ever do. But I would say it's part of the legacy we're leaving, right? So,
Yeah. Speaking of legacy, I want to get to Under the Jungle, but and I have heard this story before. So your drive for exploration, that's, I'm assuming, how you met Natalie.
Actually, we met through a friend we had in common, and I was going to cave dive with this guy once in a while. She was going to dive with him once in a while. The guy was a nice person, but the truth is he was like probably 20 years older than we were at the time. He had a very successful career in a very successful like world organization, whatever. And the guy always treated us as, oh, the young kids, they are cave divers, but I am the old guy. I know what I'm speaking about, right? So we go dive together and one weekend, and he calls me 10 minutes before. He said, oh, there is a girl like coming, and she's like your age, and she works in Nakumal at the time. And do you mind if she comes cave diving? I was looking, and I was like 26 or 27. I was single, and I was like, a girl cave diving? Sure, let her to come. So anyway, so we meet for the dive, and she's super cool, and we dive together. And at the end of the dive, she came out and she was like, hey, I don't know what you think, but frankly speaking, I don't really like how he dives. And I was like, no, I don't either. He's a disaster. And that was so true. I mean, like the technique was wrong. The guy was like, he looked like he was swimming like a raging bull through the cave, not looking at anything, breaking tie-offs. That was definitely super old school cave diving. So she came out and she was like, can I give you my phone number? And next time, like, we try to rent a car together and we go diving, but we don't have to call him. If you're fine with that, I was like, yeah, that's great, because I really like the way you dive. And that's it. And that's how, like, actually we started to dive little by little. We ended up, like, diving almost every weekend together. So she pretty soon became, like, my main buddy and also a friend. And when I made it to the point where I was really bored with my progression, I think I had just, like, I was starting the process to become a cave instructor. And I really felt that at this point something was missing. I was already doing dives with like a twin set and 2 or 3 stages and solo dives, and which I'm not bragging about, but that's the truth of what was going on at this time, because I mean I couldn't find anybody being really motivated to keep up with the rhythm of practice I was looking for myself, right? So one night I just called her and I was like, hey, you know what, like, I'm tired of all these things. It's either we start to look for virgin caves and I become an explorer, or I'm just selling all of my stuff and I'm leaving Mexico. And her answer was like, yeah, I will spend my last penny in exploration. Let me meet at La Fe. So La Fe is a bar, actually. It was a bar that doesn't exist anymore in Playa. And we met up the same night. We had dinner there. We had like lots of beers, and we actually drew and wrote like a bunch of ideas and plans to become explorers. And we had no idea about how to explore. And that's actually the night we decided that first we needed to learn how to side mount, then we needed to learn how to survey, that we needed to find like new virgin entrances, and we made this drunk plan that actually like 16 years after is still holding. So
Yeah.
so that's pretty cool. Man.
No,
But that was
that's
unexpected, and sometimes I tell her, it's like, think about, again, the unnamed guy. I had no idea that he's actually been unwillingly like a big part of our friendship and under the jungle and everything.
Yeah.
It's like without this guy, we would have never met. Or maybe we would have had after a while, because we then realized we had friends in common and everything. But still, we met through a very bad cave diver. And we met on the parking of Noroch, literally. Like if you look
Oh,
at
no
it,
shit. Okay.
that's where we met the very first time.
That's pretty awesome. Wow. The history there. Just randomly, do you remember the first... Well, I'll come back to this question later, but I wanted to ask if you remember the first exploration that you did with Nat. But
Of course, yeah.
my first question I wanted to ask you was... talk about your transition into side mount. How was that? Was it like completely foreign? Did you just take to it like a
because
water?
no, the thing at the time, like, we need to realize that nothing was existing. 2008, if you look, like, there was no X-Deep, there was no Razor. So it's more like these people would then made X-Deep, made Razor, were already living here. They were all exploring, and we were at a time in cave exploration in Mexico where old-timers, especially people like Pablo Diaz, Bill Phillips, Steve Bogarts, Andreas Mattis, all these people were like, yeah, we have explored Mexico. Everything is done. There's not much to do anymore. And we really had these versions where we were like, okay, man, we missed it by a half generation, which sucks somehow. And it actually started that some people were already doing some pretty crazy stuff in side mount, especially Steve Bogart and Robbie Schmidner. And they were finding more and more cave in side mount, because once you pass this tide restriction where twin set from the 80s or 90s couldn't fit, the caves kept going. So that's what we did, and we just like pretty much like at the time, like everybody was making their own system. So I had this system that was not even a system, that looked like a razor, but that was handmade. Nat had made up like an entire thing with like webbing from weight belt from a dive shop with D-rings. She called it the Naser. And that was like bright yellow with like this.
Does she still have it?
No, I don't think so.
No.
I wish we had kept these things. And on myself, I was like pretty early. I wanted actually to use some buoyancy on mine, because at the time there was no buoyancy. That's when people were using caramel bags.
Yeah.
So I had adapted extra small child BCD from Scuba Pro. I ripped it off. I put bungees everywhere. I just put a couple of D-rings. Managed actually to put it on my side mount harness, and we actually self-taught ourselves for like years, like listening to right and left and trying things. And I mean, I actually did a couple of exploration dives that were like between 5 and 7 hours with this thing in a wetsuit before I had even taken any side mount course, or right before any side mount system actually came out on the market. And actually, just like fun story with that, like the 7 hours dive, I had so many stages on me, and this thing was providing me with so little buoyancy that I had to keep inflated to keep it inflated like all the time. But it made the OPV like burping gas all the time, so I was like slowly sinking. And then I had to reinflate the thing, and then it was starting to leak again from the dump valve. And I did actually a 7-hour swim exploration dive like that. But at the time, it didn't even sound crazy, because that's what we had. Man. It's like there was no out-of-the-box side mount system you could like. So yeah. Well.
Do you remember when you were able to get your first out-of-the-box side mount system?
Yeah, that was a Razor, and that was a contribution from my former boss, who rest in peace, because he actually died like 2 weeks ago. But yeah, just I arrived in this dive shop, and I was so much going to dive on my weekend and do like cave diving and try mix on days off and everything. The guy was like, I would like to develop tech diving. Do you want to become a cave and tech instructor? Sure. He was okay, so this harness is for you, because when you go explore now, I'm going to pay for your explorations, but I would like you to represent the shop, and I would like you to wear something that is decent. And that's how I got like my first razor.
No shit. Now back to, can you tell me about the first time you and Nat did an exploration?
That was a Cenote Santuario. So at the time, the thing we were super worried about at the beginning exploring was like we would never find a virgin cave. And we were proved wrong really quickly. But we had no idea how to find people who could tell us about a cenote when nobody had jumped before. So what I personally did, I started to call every possible real estate agencies, and I just told them that I was super interested by buying a piece of land if it had a cenote, which is absolutely a lie, because I had no money to buy a piece of land or whatever. But I started to have actually these people answering to me, and funny thing, one of them was my upstairs neighbor again. Not the same one, another one. And the guy had a little like real estate agency, and he just put me in contact with an old guy that I still have contact with, that is actually right now living in Puerto Venturas, old Mexican, Oscar. And the guy was super nice, and he was like, yeah, I have this cenote, I want to show you to people and everything. And the very first time he took us there, we got lost in the forest. We never found the cenote. I had a flight leaving at night. We actually found the trail back. It was like 3 PM. I was covered in ticks. So was Nat. We ran back to my truck. We passed by my flat in Playa. I tossed all my clothes, including dirty clothes, like in a suitcase. And I literally left to the airport, like covered in ticks and mud, to take my flight back to France. So after that, a month after, we came back and we found the cenote, and that was actually our very first virgin cenote and virgin cave.
Oh, no shit.
We just went there like once. We found, if I remember well, like the end. It looked a little bit like a sinkhole, and we found like the bottom of like 35 meters of depth. But now I think about it, we may definitely have missed a part of the going cave because the water was clear. There were fish around. That's like lots of things that normally like show that there must be a cave somewhere around. So we never went back there, but that was the very, very first exploration we did together.
Okay.
Cenote Santuario. I even remember, because we had done the survey, that was an exact 100 meters of line in, but that was the very first 100 meters of line we had laid together, so yeah.
A question that I wanted to ask you, I was kind of talking to you about it a little bit earlier today, and you were just kind of mentioning some of the things. The question I want to ask you is like the mindset that goes into exploration, right? Because you're, just the like you saying covered in ticks, right? Like most people would be like, never in a million years, never doing that, right? Or like the things that I like the scenario that I like to put out there is like, a huge percentage of people want to know what's around the corner. A huge percentage of people won't actually put in the work to go around the corner. Right?
Yeah.
So to me, I feel it is a mindset because a lot of people will not do it. They won't put in the work. What is a mindset to become an explorer, to be an explorer?
The biggest quality, I would say, if it's a quality, which is probably not a quality for most people, that's what I was telling you earlier. I think you need like to be able to deal with frustration, and instead of making frustration something that stops you, it has to become something that you want to overcome, to forget about it. And once you have that, you can become an explorer, as long as, of course, you're interested by doing the thing and you still find it an interest. And the way I see it, you are going to walk like 2 kilometers in the forest, and you're going to be like stung by mosquitoes, and you're going to fall, hurt yourself, get dehydrated and super hungry for the entire day, especially at the beginning, the way we were doing our exploration. Now getting older, we actually take more care of these things, but we were just going for it,
yeah.
And you go to a place where you jump in the water and there's absolutely nothing, and you spend an entire day to go and prove that there is absolutely nothing there. Or then finally you find a going cave, and this going cave goes, and on the biggest part, when it really opens up, you just run out of line, or it's time to turn it on gas, and you just like, so frustration again. And you can just abandon there because you're frustrated, or you just can turn it into, okay, I want to forget about the frustration feeling, and I just want to keep going. So you start to work onto how to surpass this point of frustration. And that's really often actually in my career, that's how I kept learning. So I started with side mount for exploration. And after a while, I was like really stuck into what I was doing. So I started to use stages in side mount. And then I was limited in distance to keep pushing my exploration. So that's when I started to consider using DPVs and learn how to use the DPVs. And that's how I started to do deco and DPVs with multi-stages. And that's how we started diving rebreathers and so on and so on. So there was always this motivation to surpass frustration. But the funny thing is, like, every time you surpass it, you make it a little bit further until you hit it again. So it's always there. It's always there. Again, I would say, like, to me, like, the ability to see frustration as a new motivation is what gives you the stamina in the long term, the willpower to become an explorer, and also realizing that exploring is actually looking for answers.
Yeah.
Right? So really often people think that the most interesting exploration is the one where you're going to empty a kilometer of line. And actually, I had some explorations where not emptying a single foot of line was as satisfying from the exploratory side of it, because I had actually come to many more answers by proving that an entire section of a cave did not keep going. And now it could be out of my mind. I could actually focus on some other exploration, some other regions of a cave system, to try to keep looking for answers, right? So that's another thing, but that's, again, going back to frustration. It's like if you are just looking and you expect to get the answers you wish you will get, you're not ready to be an explorer. Like, again, exploring, it's like you need to go like with like a super open mind, open heart, and end up like accept whatever the exploration is allowing you to discover as a result. That's what it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So now actually I'm not frustrated, but if I go to see a new cave, a cenote, it doesn't go anywhere. Really often I'm just like, cool, I know, I will never come back, and that's it. Which is actually way better than having a horrible access to jump in a place that looks like it's going, and then you come back another day and it goes a little bit, and then you come back another day, and just it stops. And then it's actually way more frustrating than something that doesn't give anything from the beginning.
Yeah.
I don't know if I answered the question there, but
No, you did, because it's almost like I was kind of saying it earlier, and I didn't just put it together until now, but it's like, so exploring is almost like the art of frustration, how to deal with it, how to manage it, and obviously you are a very patient person. You had me for a student for the last 5 years.
I had way worse. That was actually like it did already strain my patience there. So. And it's pretty hard. It's pretty hard. It's why I teach. Otherwise, I should probably change.
Do you think that, so you obviously have a tolerance for frustration, right? Before you hit that like point. Do you think that was there before you started exploring, or has your exploring kind of helped that you be more patient?
I would say both are absolutely true. I mean, when I was a kid, if there's something I wanted to do, I would become obsessed with things. Just like, and I've always been like a super, I don't know if it exists in English, but like a monomaniac. I love water, so I swim. I did some spearfishing. I did some underwater hockey. I did some free diving. I do like scuba diving, and especially like tech and cave diving. So everything that I do in my life has to do with water. But if I really like something, I would put myself into it like crazy. Like when I wanted to learn Spanish, I went for it, and I went for it. Which is also a problem really often, because when that's something that is not really interesting for me in the first place, I'm not very good at becoming good at something I have no interest for. Some people are great at that. Patrick, you were speaking about, who is a very good friend. I mean, the guy is like, yeah, I wake up at 4 a.m. and I go lift weight because I hate it, but I'm working on my willpower. And I see the point. I'm just, why would you do that if you're on top of everything? You hate it. to me, to wake up at 6 and to go to do something, it's like swimming, because I love swimming. Yes, that I can do.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So there was definitely like a little bit of this personality I already had. Then I would say another thing we were speaking about today is like I did years and years of skateboarding, and skateboarding is one of the most frustrating activity ever. But once you got the glimpse of how much fun it can be when you start to learn tricks, then it really motivates you to get back on your board even though you're bleeding and with a broken bone and try the same trick again and again and again until you land it. And then you keep trying it again and again and again until you really lock it into your tricks as a normal, like common, like muscle memory now. So I already had the psychology of that a little bit. And then definitely exploration also kept training that. But thanks to the reward, again, most of the time it's actually super frustrating, but we also do it for the very little times where it turns into the most incredible dive of your life, where you just like lay a kilometer of line in the most incredible landscapes that nobody has seen before. And even though after that you need to walk for another hour and carry your stuff and suffer for it, what I was saying, you go back home and you really feel like, well, today my life was not a normal life. You know, I did something that most people will never do in their entire lives. And that's actually, to me, a motivation to keep dealing with frustration, knowing that frustration is just like a step today to make it to success tomorrow. And the success of tomorrow is going to become at one point frustration that is going to become a step for more success after, and so on and so on.
Yeah.
So I had the personality, but I also think that cave exploration helps building on it, right?
Yeah. Oh, and I mean, I can only imagine, or cannot imagine, I should say, to go through all of that frustration and then to have that silver lining, like you said, you make that, lay that line, you find that passage, you're the first person to ever be there. I don't even know if I'd be able to fall asleep then. Well, I mean, maybe just from pure exhaustion from what you were saying, like you're just physically, mentally exhausted, but like that's got to be a wild feeling, just trying to go to bed that night being like...
No, and I don't fall asleep, like even after many years of doing it, like when that happens, I don't fall asleep really quick. Images keep coming back and back and back. Sometimes I'm literally like, I would tell Nat, I'm high on exploration. It's just like I would call her at night or send a message. It's like, I'm just like looking at the survey on my computer. I'm just like smiling like an idiot. And my wife will be, what are you doing? You're still looking at your little stupid map? And I'm just like, yeah, because I'm not just looking at the map. My mind is already wondering about all the things I still need to discover about this place. I'm super visual, so every time I cut the line in the middle of a dark passage that keeps going, that's the thing that sticks to my mind until I come back. And that's actually the element of frustration that motivates me to come back. Like this memory of this line, like at front of a promising dark passage, is like, that's where I want to come back as soon as I can, right? So yeah, no, going out at night after like the best possible dives is like it's super difficult.
So you've been an instructor, you've been, I'm sure to countless, a mentor, had mentors yourselves, but there was like, I can't remember, I want to say a month or 2 months ago, you had put up a post, and I actually really, really liked the post. I think you did it on Facebook and Instagram. So I don't remember the timeline. Maybe you can talk a little bit about it. But some time ago, there was a person that approached you in France. Ramon, is that his name?
Yeah, he's Spanish from Spain, but I was in France when you approached us.
Yeah, and so can you just talk a little bit about that? But the post that you led up to was how because I was kind of chatting with you also about this today, how there's a lot of people in the industry, but there's a lot of people quick to discount you. And you even kind of said it before, like, we've done all the exploration, there's nothing left. So can you just kind of talk about that whole scenario, like why you put that post up?
So we have quite a few people like who contact us for internships and things like that for legal reasons. We can already do that here in Mexico. And the guy was so insisting, and I was like, okay. He was like, oh, I want to talk to you. I was like, yeah, like emails are fine. No, I want to talk to you. So,
this was through email or in person?
No, at the end, he just gave me a phone call. And the funny thing, like we started to talk, and the guy was He's like 25 now, so he was 24. He had so much drive, motivation, and everything. I felt like I was talking to the young Vince about 22 years ago. The guy wanted to learn so much and to see everything and to do everything and to go deeper and to go further and to learn about rebreathers, and he had much a question about mixed gas, whatever. And I was like, man, he's pretty unique. So I called Nat right after, and I was, you know what, like normally we say no, but I feel that this is kind of destiny. And this guy sounded so much like I was at the same age. I want to give him this chance that nobody really gave me. So that's how he started, and he came to Mexico. And then I absolutely don't regret it, because he absolutely exceeded expectations. If he keeps going in this industry, I have no doubt, like, wait for less than 10 years, the world will know about him. He has talent, like, as a teacher, as a diver, as an explorer, he has the passion and the drive, and what I was saying earlier, it's all it takes. I mean, like, if you just do it because you like it, at one point things just like start to happen. You meet the right people, and probably the attitude make you ask the right questions, and being volunteer for the right projects and everything. So I think with the attitude, actually, you're already solving more than 50% of the thing. And that being said, I just wanted to give him the opportunity, like, to be around us, like something I wished I had as an opportunity when I was the same age. And frankly, I had in my career I have met like people who were super inspiring. But what I was telling you in the driving earlier, I also had, when I started as an instructor, like so many people I sent letters to, emails, curriculums. I was looking for work. I was ready to be like a diving beach and to learn anything, not asking for anything, you know what I mean? And I had a vast majority of these people I contacted would never ever send like a slight or tiny message to say, hey, we are not interested, but thank you, good luck. That's it, right? So this time I had promised myself that I would never ever do that. And that's what I'm trying to do. Giving people who have the same passion a chance, even though I'm pretty picky, and it's pretty unique when I do it, because there have to be like really people who stand out compared to the majority. But no matter what like curriculum I receive or letter like that, I make a point of treating people as human beings, and just like a basic proof of respect is actually answering them.
You know, to be honest, I really did love that post, because there's this, not information, but, you know, a lot of really good instructors, you know, and like a lot of instructors will be like, oh, okay, do your research, reach out to your instructor, reach out to your future instructor, right? Like, reach out to that person. If you want to learn from them, reach out to them, open line of communication with them. If they don't open communication with you, they're not the person that you should go to. But I feel like more often than not, that's kind of what you run into.
I would say it depends a lot on what level you are into. But yeah,
I mean, I get it. People are busy.
Look, I'm not going to give name and everything, but I would put it this way. I have found in my career a few people, less than 5, that have been incredibly inspiring. And
Yeah.
that still are. And these people, like, if they listen, they will know who they are. I also have like met people who are big names and who are, from my human standpoint and perspective, absolutely not inspiring.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying with that is, like, you can be the best technician in the world. You could have gone to 350 meters of depth. You can have done like the 25 hours dive. If you don't have humility to realize that first you do it because you like it, and that if you are privileged enough to be able to do these things and you don't share them with the people around, to me everything you're doing is absolutely pointless, and I have no admiration for you.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to say name, but there are people who are supposed to be some of the big names. And I'm just like, they're a big name, then you sit with them, try to see how they treat people around, the ego they have, all this kind of thing, the lack of humility. It's like, and again, it's pretty funny, because if we were rock stars or football players, or you are Michael Jordan, even these people, I don't see why they would have such a big ego that make them feel better than other people around, right? But at least they are making dozens of millions, like the entire world knows them. Let's be frank, like, even the best cave divers or technical divers on the planet, nobody knows shit about them. Really? Why? Because he doesn't understand. He doesn't interest anybody.
Yeah.
He just interests the very niche population that does these things.
Yeah.
And why walking around beating up your chest because you've been like so far in a cave? Yeah. I mean, most of the people ask anybody like working around and walking around like ask anybody. Yeah, like who are these people? Nobody knows who they are. Is it cool? What do you think about the guy who went like 15 kilometers in a cave? It's like probably a psycho, a maniac. It's what it is. It's what, and that's why it's like at one point we need to step back a little bit and put things in perspective. Of course, it's, and don't get me wrong, it's like I live, sleep, eat, drink, shit, cave diving, and tech diving, right? It's like it's what I've been doing with my entire life, just because I love it and I don't imagine living without it. But at the end, it doesn't make me cool to most people. It just makes it, oh, okay, that's what he does. You know,
Well, I
like,
think like a part of that too is the circle that you surround yourself with, right? Because like you said, and I completely understand there are some big names out there that have extremely big heads, but it's the circle around, and it's even led to some tragedies. I mean, it's been spoken about, written about, where you have, you know, like this group around you that's building you up and being like, you're amazing.
I know exactly which story you're speaking about. Yeah, that's really crazy how human can be so full of himself or herself.
Oh,
That being said, by the way, it's way more himself than herself.
yeah. Oh, no, for sure.
Actually,
for
like
sure.
I think there is a way more healthy motivation for most like female tech or cave diver than there is for men. But that's another topic. Yeah, I don't see how at one point you can feel yourself like so special that you don't want to share with others and you're so cool. I mean, that's again being pretty blind, and that just makes you like the king of your tiny stupid kingdom, but it doesn't make you the master of the world, right?
No, for sure. And I think sometimes the problem with the technical side of diving is it attracts a certain mindset. That mindset could be, before they're even coming into it, I'm a god walking on this earth, and then they do something that's extreme, so now they're even more, you know, this amazing entity that's walking around gracing everybody's presence. Or the other side of that is the humble person being like, oh, this is amazing. And I feel like usually that humble driven person is the person that usually excels more, right? And then the other person kind of flames out.
I would say so too. And the reason is pretty easy. I mean, like if you're pretty humble, you tend to shut up, listen, and try to learn from everybody. Meanwhile, when you're full of yourself, you just tell about your own stories, and you're just wasting time to keep learning from other people around. And maybe you want to learn from something great you could improve. Maybe you want to learn from something horrible you don't want to reproduce, but you're still learning by listening to the people, which is exactly the same teaching. I mean, a big part of teaching is like adjusting to students and listening to them, right? Instead of spitting them information. But yeah, I absolutely agree on that.
So one of the things I heard when I was very young, and I was just, you know, basically like a young kid, always talking too much. But they're like, you know, when you go somewhere new, the best thing you can do is shut your mouth, open your ears.
Absolutely. Your eyes, your ears.
Yeah, and just take it all in. But I have one last question for you before I let you go. And this has been an absolutely amazing conversation. It's been an absolutely wonderful week. Highlight. But we'll you know, get to that at some point. But my last question for you before I let you go is, and I don't know if this is kind of a cliche question, but somebody that wants to explore, somebody that wants to go and lay that new line, find that virgin cave, what is the one, and I know you kind of said just, you know, learn to deal with frustration, but I'm sure there's many things that go into that. But what is just like the one piece of advice you can give to that person that wants to explore, you know, reach that level of, hey, I'm going to go out and try to find something new?
I would say just go out and do it, really. It's always the thing, like what you were saying earlier, like so many people are like, yeah, I want to be an explorer. they don't do anything to it. So the very first step was for me was like to call Nat and to tell, hey, we need to find a way. We need to, and then like calling all these real estates and pretending I wanted to buy a cenote so I could find like places to explore. So I would say just like exploration is again like getting answers, finding answers about questions you have, not expecting a specific answer. So I would say just open your mind, go out, do it one day at a time. And if you really have the passion to keep doing it, one day you will look back and you will see what you have achieved without ever realizing that that happened.
You'll be talking about it on a podcast.
Yeah, it's like if I was a basketball player. Yeah, come on. But you know
No,
what
I
I
get
mean?
it.
It's like, and hopefully, if I look at the next 20 years, I really hope we will do still crazier things and deeper dives and longer dives, and we will find like more beautiful caves and I mean we don't have time enough here, but so many crazy stories we had exploring through the people we met, the landscapes we met, the situations, and some of them were like super dodgy and so on and so on. So but there are so much like life experience to learn and to live out of exploration, that take it as life is, one day at a time, and one day you turn back and you realize that 20 years ago you were 20, and 20 years ago you were 40, and you have achieved things that take time to achieve, and you never realize them at the time you are making them, but it's a process, and that's the last thing. I mean, you cannot be an explorer if you do it once a year. Being an explorer is, again, as we said already, it's a mindset and something. You don't do exploration. You are an explorer, right? It's not something you do, it's something you are. And that is definitely like a big difference.
Vincent, I absolutely appreciate you joining the podcast today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Hope it was not too boring. Congrats again for the good job today, man.
Thank you. Thank
Congrats
you very much.
so much.
It was it was pretty amazing.
Great. All a good day.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Offgassing, a scuba podcast.